Hello again team, it's Jess or JashiiCorrin and welcome back for another video. Today we are setting up for February 2022 in my everyday bullet journal, and the theme that I'm going for the month ahead is sunsets. This one was voted on by my patrons, so a big shout out to them for picking a theme with such a wide variety of gorgeous colour palettes. Before we get into the setup of those February pages though, we are of course, as per usual, going to have a look at how this month was going. As you'll remember from my last monthly plan with me video, my theme for January was mountains. Though this kind of turned into a buffalo plaid theme. I'm not mad about it though. I think the buffalo plaid looks really good. What I was kind of, not even mad about, but maybe mildly frustrated with, was the amount of time it took to draw said buffalo plaid. I am still very much on the hunt for a buffalo plaid washi tape because it would have made the setup so much faster. But I do really love the combination of the black and the red on the white paper, and then having the gold acrylograph for a little bit of a metallic touch. It was an enjoyable theme to do, and I found that my consistency in using my journal has been pretty good this month. However, when it comes to a new month, there are always things that I want to try or change, and we do have some of those for February. But I'll talk a bit more about them when we get to those pages. As we head into the time lapse though, just a reminder that any of the equipment I use in today's setup is linked in the description box below, and without further ado, let's get into it. As you can see, the first thing I'm doing here is drawing out a box for my quote to go in for my quote page. Like you'll have seen from the thumbnail and from the shots we had at the start of this video, I'm going with a pretty bright colour palette this month. And while I wanted to have that gradient on my quote page, I didn't want it to take up the entire of the quote page. The quote box that we have here is going to be left white, so to protect it from any of the colouring I'm going to be doing, I just put some washi tape on the inner edge of the box. This means that I can be a bit more blasé with my colouring. I don't have to worry too much about colouring over those lines into the box, and it just makes it easier to get nice crisp edges. This is probably one of my favourite ways to use washi tape, and it's a trick that I use a lot in my setup today. In terms of the colouring we're going to be doing, this is the most pens I feel I've ever used in any one setup. As you can see here, we have 19 different colours of tombos. I do have all of the numbers of the tombos listed in order in the description box. So if you wanted to recreate this palette, or part of it, maybe if you don't have the full set of tombos like I do, you can find all of those numbers down there. You'll see that to do the colouring of the gradient pattern I've got for my background, I'm just using washi tape to create strips that the colour can go into. Each of those strips are 1 centimetre tall, and we're just doing a transition of blue through to purple, through to pink, red, orange, yellow, going from the top to the bottom of the page. Of course, you don't have to use the washi tape here, I just preferred to because I really wanted those lines to be very straight. But this did certainly add to the time taken. For this spread in particular, it took me 1 hour and 5 minutes. And a lot of that time was dedicated to the colouring, and a large aspect of the colouring was laying the washi tape down and pulling it back up without ripping my page. Most of the time you can lay washi tape down onto a page and pull it back up without ripping any of the paper, if you're careful. But because for some of these pieces of washi I was sticking it over areas that I'd pretty recently coloured in with the tombow, the paper was a little bit more fragile, just given it was a bit saturated with the wet marker. This meant I did rip my page a couple of times, but thankfully, given that I'm using the Archer & Olive with its 160 GSM paper, I could just colour over these ripped sections and still not get any bleed through to the other side. I know if I was doing this in some of the other journals that I've used previously, that would have not been the case. From the footage we have here, which might I say is incredibly sped up, you guys didn't want to watch this at 10 times speed, it was still going to take just 5 minutes of colouring. Typically 10 times speed is what I usually like to do for my time lapses, but yeah, this one was just a little bit too long to warrant that. But yes, as you can see, the way that I'm doing this gradient background did require a lot of washi tape. I actually went through like 2.5 full rolls of washi tape to do this setup. So I would very much not recommend you use your good quality, like favourite washi tapes to do this. Anytime I get a set of washi tapes, I like to set aside the ones that I don't necessarily like quite as much. Maybe it's the pattern or the decoration of the washi tape, or maybe it's the quality of the washi tape itself. For this one here, I don't typically use washi tapes that have days of the week, so I figured that using the washi tape to mask my page instead was just going to be a better use of it for me. As I said before, you of course do not need to do this if you want to try and recreate this layout. I just personally wanted really straight edges with consistent colour, and I find it's a lot easier to get consistent colour with the tombos, especially on paper like this, if you work quickly. And it's a lot easier to work quickly if you don't have to try and keep an edge super straight. You can just colour over the edge of the washi tape instead. If you've been a subscriber for a while, you probably know already, but in my journal I love to use contrast. So we're thinking bright white or bright colours with bold blackout sections. I figured that sunsets was a perfect theme to bring in some of those contrasting elements. I really love in pictures and art pieces of sunsets when you have the silhouette of something in front of the gradient sky. So that is what I decided to go with for our decoration in February. On the bottom of the page here, I'm just putting in a blackout section that is styled to represent grass. I told Vogel that this was a tribute to our lawn that essentially constantly needs mowing. And while I was very tempted to do something like a tree or a desert scene or literally anything else that you find the silhouette of in a sunset picture, I figured I'd stick to something a little bit simpler, a little bit more in my wheelhouse. Even then, this grass gave me a fair bit of grief. You may already know that organic shapes are not something I'm really good with, and considering grass is organic matter, capturing the randomness and the appearance of the grass was a little bit tricky for me. I'd kind of just find myself adding and adding and adding to it because I wanted to make it look uniform, but not too uniform. Here you can see what I put my hands through doing all of this colouring, so it is certainly something to be aware of if you're trying to recreate this layout. For the cover page component of this spread, so the page on the right, I wanted to do another silhouette style element, but this time instead of colouring it in with my Tombow, I decided to use blackout paper from the Archer and Olive notepad instead. For this one I just cut out a capital F for February and stuck it in using my Tombow double-sided tape roller. I actually ended up using 3 different tape rollers in this setup because my Tombow one ran out, and of the 3 that I used, I would have to say that the Tombow was my favourite. Typically before I start filming my monthly plan with me's, I've fully planned out and penciled in all of the layouts that I'm going to be using. When it came to my quote page though, I really wasn't sure what kind of a quote I wanted to use. The one that I decided to go with though is by Napoleon Hill and says, "Don't wait, the time will never be just right." I appreciated how this quote ties into my word of the year, which is jump, which is essentially all about me getting into action quicker. A lot of the time I hesitate to get started with things because I feel like I need to wait for the perfect time or do more research or wait until I have 100% of an action plan sorted. So I want this quote to remind me to just get into things. I'd be curious to know if that happens to you guys too. Do you ever hold off on starting something because you feel like you don't have adequate resources or adequate understanding yet? You're holding out until you've done more research or for a specific opportunity or something like that? Let me know in the comments below if you do or don't relate to that. As you can see here though, we are now on to the monthly log. As per last month, I'm going with a calendar style monthly, where each of the boxes are 6 spaces across by 6 spaces down. To keep that sunset theme going, we used the same gradient background, but we're not going to watch me colour it out again. I think once was more than enough. In terms of timing, the monthly log took about an hour from first touch of the pen to final erasings. But as usual, these times don't include the sketching out time or the idea generation time. If you were wanting to do a theme like this, but didn't want to spend quite as much time as I did setting it up, I do now offer printables of my monthly setups over on my Patreon. Patrons in my Progress Over Perfection tier or higher get my monthly cover page as a printable, and patrons who are in Team In It to Win It or higher also get all of my other monthly layouts as well. If you wanted to come over and join the Patreon team, we have tiers starting as low as $1 per month, and we would love to have you as part of our community. That one's also linked in the description box below. To go along with our 19 different Tombow colours, I also decided to use a bunch of different Staedtler Tri Plus fine liners. While we don't have quite as many colours here, only 13, That still takes our pen count for this setup to a pretty impressive total. Do you need to use all of these colours? No, but I decided to. Flipping over, and you can see I've already put our decorative elements on this spread, but our page on the left is going to be my monthly challenge page, and on the right we're going to have my action steps. While my monthly challenge for January was 20 minutes of exercise daily, for February I figured I'd turn my attention to sleep. Again, if you've been here for a while, if you watch my vlogs, you'll know that my sleep patterns are terrible. Like, at the time of recording this, it's currently 12 midnight, and I still have at least 2 more hours of voice recording to do, because that's how long voice recording takes me. So my challenge for February is to be getting up and getting into bed, ready to go to sleep, at a consistent time every day. The times that I'm aiming for are 6:30 in the morning for my wake up, and being in bed, ready to go to sleep, lights off, not on my phone, at 10:30 p.m. This will probably be quite a challenge for me. I do not like getting up in the morning. I can barely consistently get up at 7 a.m. for my school days, and the idea of being in bed before 11 is kind of a foreign concept. But I know that working on this is going to go such a long way to improving my health, which is effectively the point of these challenges. The reason in particular that I selected 6:30 for my wake up time is because I want to continue doing my daily exercise, and I found that doing it first thing in the morning is helping me stay more consistent. In order to do it first thing in the morning and still get to school on time, I need to get up at 6:30. For my action steps page though, you can see just like last month I have 3 sections, so a space for one-off or monthly actions, a space for my weekly actions, and a space to record what my daily actions are. The monthly and weekly ones will be tracked on this page, whereas the daily ones are going to go on my habit trackers, which I've now been putting on my weekly spreads. These 2 pages took 20 minutes and 22 minutes respectively, and now we're flipping over and onto the meal planner / log. This one's a bit different to the one that I had in January. In January I was just recording what I did eat, whereas on this one I'm planning to record what I plan to eat. I found that although I do have a meal planner at the start of my journal, which I included in my start of journal setup, I've been having trouble actually remembering to turn back and look at it after I plan my meals out. I'm hoping that by recording my planned meals in the pages of my monthly setup, I might be a little bit more likely to turn back and actually pay attention to those plans. The way this one works is that we have 4 separate spreads, with each of those holding 7 days. Each day has 4 spaces, so breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, and the spaces are big enough that I can not only write down what I plan to eat, but if I end up having something else, I also have enough space to write down what I actually do eat. While my previous meal log did well as effectively a record of eating, what I'm hoping that this style will allow me to do is pay a bit more attention to how successful I am in actually following through on the plans I'm making. So are there certain meal types that I can consistently plan and actually eat what I plan? Are there certain days of the week where my plans fall through? That kind of stuff. It's a bit of an experiment, so we'll see how it goes, but I am quite hopeful for this layout. In terms of timing, all 4 of the spreads together took about 3 hours to set up, but that includes things like doing all the colouring, doing the making of the Dutch doors, sticking in all of the pieces of paper, a fairly time-consuming layout. Here you can see all of those meal planner / log pages that I have set up on the Dutch doors with the little tabs, and then over the page you can see on this one we already have 8 boxes set up. This page here is going to be for my weekly routines, so effectively what tasks I try to do on specific days of the week. You may be thinking, but Jess, there are 7 days in the week, not 8. I figured for the 8th box I could use this as a some point list. So for tasks that I don't necessarily have to do on a specific day of the week, but ones that I do try to do once a week. So for instance, something like laundry is a task that I try and do every Sunday, whereas a task like doing a desk tidy up isn't necessarily something I have to assign to a specific day. In terms of timing, this one took about 35 minutes, including the decorative background, and now it's time for our flip through. I accidentally forgot to include a monthly reflection page in this setup. I did want to include one, but I think I'll probably just set that one up when I do my monthly reset at the end of January. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's setup with a couple of new pages. If you made it to this point in the video, chuck a sun emoji down in the comments. But as you can see, we had the quote and cover page, the monthly log. Here we have my monthly challenge page for my sleep routine and my action steps for the month ahead. After this we have my meal planner / log across 4 spreads with 7 days contained on each. And then the final page here is to house my weekly routines. Thank you again to my patrons for selecting such a gorgeous theme. And as always team, thank you for watching. If you liked today's video, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up. And if you hadn't already and felt so inclined, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more on planning, productivity, and personal development. Until next time, bye!